human experience, what does it take for us to be really big for God? And I don't mean the dualistic sky God. I'm talking about we are God. So, but think about it, to be our absolute greatest self, what does it take? And I mean mind-blowing. Never thought I could be here and stand here big. To follow our conscious pathway and know that we are powerful creators of all that is in our lives. And we really are. We really are. We have to have the faith. We have to believe that. No matter what is taking place that might seem opposite to us, it's a condition. We are strong manifestors, and we cannot forget that. And it takes great willingness to dare greatly. To dare greatly means willing to not know how but try anyway. Be scared but do it anyway. Feel self-conscious but show up anyway. Not to have a clue of the outcome but take a risk anyway. To feel naked, to be authentic and real anyway. To be who we really are, no matter what. To dare greatly means to live wholeheartedly, which is what our theme has been for this month, by cultivating the courage, compassion, connection, and to be able to live from a place where we can say, and this is from Brene Brown, I may be imperfect in what I do, and sometimes I'm afraid, and sometimes I play small, and sometimes I mess up a little, and sometimes I mess up big. But that doesn't change the truth that I am worthy of love and belonging and connection. And I am also absolutely capable of being gigantically a powerful expression of consciousness, of divinity, and accomplishing amazing good in the world. And that is exactly what I am going to do, because that's what I came here to do. This is not staying. Remember that each and every one of us are unique expressions of the one mind, the one energy. And it's time for us to claim our uniqueness and to be who we really are. It's too bad if other people don't really get it. That's not our business, right? Our business is that we get it, and we are it, no matter what. Not everyone's going to like us. I say that to myself. And you know what? That's on them. That's not on me. If I am showing up the best that I can be, and this is for all of us, there isn't anything else I need do. So in order to be big for God, we must dare to be, and our big word for this month has been vulnerable. After this series, I don't think I'll use that word again. I have been saying this word, you'll hear it how many times. But it's very important. It's a really important word, to be vulnerable. To see your face up on a billboard, that's vulnerability. And go, oh my God. And say, yes, I deserve to be on that billboard. That's claiming, and that's being big enough to claim that, yeah, I do belong up there. Why not? Now I want a billboard. I want a billboard. Okay. Anyway. And all of this gets to the one word, which I've just said, that we are exploring this month, which is the key to living greatly and to be authentic in this human experience that we're in, is to live from a wholehearted place, and that word is vulnerable. To be really vulnerable. In order to be big for God, we must dare to be vulnerable. It's interesting that a scientist, a scientist would research vulnerability, but that is exactly what Brene Brown has done, and then spoken about it. And you might have seen her years ago, and you can still Google it, I'm sure, on TED Talks on vulnerability. Then she wrote her book, Dare Greatly. So what does vulnerable really mean? According to Brown, it means to be able to live in uncertainty, to be willing. We did a whole 3-hour class this week on uncertainty. So that was really clarifying. But that's all part of vulnerability, to live in uncertainty, because actually we're always living in uncertainty. We just think we're certain because it's familiar. But don't change that familiar stuff around, because then we are moving into uncertainty. But we're there anyway. That's what we don't know. We're there anyway. To be willing to take risks and be okay with emotional exposure. In other words, to be willing to not know how, but try anyway. Be scared, but do it anyway. Feel self-conscious, but show up anyway. Not have a clue of the outcome, but take risks anyway. Being vulnerable has gotten a lot of bad press, both in the outer circumstance of our life and in the inner realm, which is where our thoughts and emotions are. But this morning, we're going to move from a couple of myths behind being vulnerable into the magic that happens when we are willing to be. So the first myth is weakness. You might have heard this. I have in my life. She couldn't say the words, but it was the same thing was meant, is you have to be tough, you can't be weak. And does vulnerability really make us weak? Some people believe it does, and that's a pretty widely accepted myth. And we've all heard the phrase, don't let them see you sweat. I don't think I've ever really said it, but we've all heard that. It means be cool, hide everything. Those days are over. They're over in here. They're over for this community, because we're here to express our true selves. According to Brown's research, vulnerability is actually the core of all emotions and feelings. To feel is to be vulnerable, just to feel. To believe vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness, that our emotions are weakness. And maybe you were raised thinking, being told that, yeah, that's weak to have those feelings, so put on that shield, that mask, so you can get through it. Life is tough. I didn't say that. Brene writes this: what most of us fail to understand, and what took a decade of research to learn, is that vulnerability is the cradle of the emotions and experiences that we crave. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, and creativity, she says. It is the source of hope, of empathy, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper, more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. We got to put ourselves out there, no matter what, if that's what we want to accomplish or want to do. And I came to this conclusion many years ago when I realized that you can't turn off some emotions and leave the other ones running. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Like, I had thought I had done that. I wanted to feel good. You know, we want to feel good. And never bad. I don't want to feel bad. I want to feel happy, but never sad. I want to feel all these feelings, but not those ones. And you just can't do that. It's an on-off switch. There's no rheostat involved in this. There is a rheostat in most things in life, but not in this. You got to feel it all, because that's life. That's what we came here to do. You either have your emotions switched on or off, no middle. So while I didn't feel bad, didn't feel sad, I also never truly felt good. So you don't get the full spectrum of what feeling joy truly means, of loving. You can't love unless you're vulnerable, and that's the truth. While Ernest Holmes does not speak directly to this idea of vulnerability, he often spoke of the need for feeling. And those of you who've been in foundation class know what I'm going to talk about. The technique and the fire in spiritual mind treatment, which is affirmative prayer. He's very explicit about the feeling behind the words. And he writes this on page 398 in The Science of Mind. Our mental acceptance should be filled with conviction, warmth, color, and imagination. The creative power responds to feeling more quickly than any other mental attitude. We have a thought, law of attraction. We have a thought, and there's no feeling behind it. It's just a thought. It might move a little something, but the law is responding to the emotion, the feelings behind the words. That's what it's really responding to. So vulnerability is not a weakness. And in fact, it is vitally important for us to live fully and express God in the biggest way possible. In her research, Brown asked people what vulnerability meant to them. And here were some of their answers. And they might seem weak to you. Sharing an unpopular opinion. That's being vulnerable, isn't it? Standing up for myself. Asking for help. Saying no. Starting my own business. The first date after my divorce. That's fun. Well, that's a lot of fun. The older you get, the more fun it gets, too. Saying, I love you first and not expecting or knowing what the answer is going to come back to you as. Getting promoted and not knowing if you can succeed. Getting fired. Trying something new. Asking for forgiveness. Having faith. This is all what people said. And this list is endless. It goes on and on. It really does. And to me, and maybe to you, these don't sound like weaknesses. It takes great courage to be vulnerable. It really does take great courage. But we are all courageous beings of light. And I don't want to hear anything else, because that's what we are. Every one of us. Vulnerability, see why I'm not going to use this word again. Now I got another week of this. Vulnerability sounds more like truth and courage in each and every one of those areas. And truth and courage aren't always comfortable. In fact, the more uncomfortable, it's usually you're on the right path. When it really feels uncomfortable. Do I really want to do this? Yep, you showed up, suit up, and get out there and do it. And so what if it doesn't go over big? So what if it looks like it fails? It doesn't make a difference. You did it. You did it. You were open enough, vulnerable enough to do it. And it's never weakness. There's actually some very persuasive leadership research that shows that the idea of vulnerability and courage are important to leadership qualities. In a 2011 Harvard Business Review article, Peter Fuda and Richard Badham used a series of metaphors to explore how leaders spark and sustain change. And one of the metaphors is a snowball. The snowball starts rolling when the leader is willing to be vulnerable with those that he or she leads. Their research showed that the act of vulnerability is perceived by others as courageous by team members, and inspires others to follow suit. It's a great example to stand up and be vulnerable. It's a great, courageous thing to do. But here's an interesting paradox. If we see vulnerability as courageous in others, which we can, yet see it as a weakness in ourselves, that's a paradox. But it never is. It never is. So, myth number 2, if I'm vulnerable, I might get hurt. Well, the deal about this myth is that there is some truth to it. There is some truth to it. You might get hurt. And isn't it worth the risk? Isn't it really worth the risk? And there is something that you can do to minimize the greater the risk. Vulnerability is not oversharing, as I sometimes can do. It is not that. It's not purging. It's not indiscriminate disclosure. It is about sharing our feelings and our experiences with people who have the right to hear them. You can't always have guarantees in place before risk sharing. However, we don't bare our souls the first time we meet someone either. Like, we don't lead with, "Hi, my name is Margaret, and here's my darkest, deepest struggle that I want to share with you." That's not being vulnerable, that's being stupid. I have to use that word. It's being stupid. It is. Why? Because sharing appropriately means sharing with people whom you've developed a relationship with. And how do I know if I can trust someone enough to be vulnerable? There's a word there, trust, that I have held sacred for many, many, many years in my life. I don't know why, but I do. And I've said it many times, because people say, "Well, you can't trust that anymore." And I'm like, you know what? I'm not giving my trust away to anyone. No one is going to steal my trust. My trust is sacred to me. I can't be vulnerable. I can't be who I really am if I can't trust. So I trust wisely. I trust. Or I'll only be vulnerable with someone if I'm sure they won't turn on me. How can you tell if someone has your back? How can you tell? How do you build trust with people? And that's a bit like the chicken and the egg issue, right? We need to feel trust in order to be vulnerable, and we need to be vulnerable in order to feel trust. Which comes first? There is no trust test, no scoring system, no green light that tells us it's safe to be ourselves, to be seen. There isn't any. Just show up and be yourself. And if they don't like it, the hell with them. That's what I say. Really. Be yourself. Don't try to be something to please others, which a lot of people do. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. You're worth more than that. And someone has to start first. Someone has to try. Someone has to dip their toes in the vulnerability water and see what happens. I know that word is getting me. But see what happens when you do. And why not have that somebody be you? You do it first. You're the courageous one. So start small by sharing a small vulnerability and see how it works. I know.
That's vulnerable.
Very vulnerable. Just saying the word vulnerability is very vulnerable. I can say vulnerable. It's that I-L-T-Y part. Does that person share back? Or do they stare at you like you have a third eye? If he or she stares back, you might be in the presence of someone with whom you can really feel vulnerable. They're hearing you. So continue the discovery process. If not, you can always talk about the weather. But you got to start somewhere, yeah? Myth number 3, I can go it alone. I got this. I don't need help from anyone. I've heard that many times. Going it alone is a value that we seem to hold in high esteem in our culture. But the truth is, the journey through life is not one that we can really make alone. We're not meant to be alone. We're truly not. That's why I have to be in community. I want to be around people. I want to be around people. You know, even the cashier, wherever I am, I'm going to hang out and have for a long time, and have a whole conversation with them as time allows, because I feel comfortable. Why not? But this community and communities of any sort that support you, that really unconditionally accept you, you need that in your life. We need a hand to pull us up sometimes off the ground when we get kicked down in this arena. And sometimes it really does feel like we got kicked down. It does. But we got to stand right back up again and keep on moving forward. Always forward. We don't go backwards. We need folks who will let us try new ways of being without judging us. We need a hand to help pull us up off the ground. And across the course of Brené's research, participants were very clear about their need for support and encouragement as they navigate through life. And most of us are good, very good, at giving help, right? But asking for it, even myself, that's kind of like, do I really want to ask for help? It depends. If you're related to me, like my sister, or if you live in my house, I'm going to ask for help very easily. But I'm just talking in general. Asking someone for help, it can make you feel vulnerable. But this is the important part, until we have received help with an open heart, we are never really giving with an open heart. It always goes together, the giving and the receiving. We have to be able to receive in order to give, and give in order to receive. It's cyclical. It goes together. It's the two sides of the same coin. When we attach judgment to receiving help, we knowingly or unknowingly attach judgment to giving help. We all need help. We get by with a little help from our friends. And I won't quote the next line. That was my reference to you, Mike. You know the song?
Yeah.
John Lennon, yeah. Well, we're not here to do that today. We're here to ask for that help with the help of our friends, whatever it is. Starhawk, in her book, Dreaming the Dark, describes the power of community. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion, without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open up to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to the work that needs to be done, and arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, she says, a circle of friends, somewhere where we can be free. And I think free to be me, where we can feel that freedom to just, you haven't been in a place, I'm just thinking of it now, where you're so uncomfortable, like you really don't feel like you fit in. And it's an awful feeling, and it's, you know, who wants to even be there? But some people find themselves in those situations a lot. But we need, all of us, and we do need it, a community where we can relax and be who we truly are. It's such a gift. Your mission this week, if you choose, is to practice being vulnerable in small ways and knowing that it is never a sign of weakness. You won't get hurt, and even if you do, it's worth the risk. Because if nothing else, we got to remember we were not built to be alone. And in the infinite energy, we're never alone. There's only one infinite presence, one energy, one power. So we might think we're alone, we're going to do it alone, but we're not. And when we're with community, with people that accept us for who we are, that's when we feel really empowered to be our best. That's when we feel great. So let's practice a little bit this week, doing something a little uncomfortable. And so it is.